Channel podcast. Welcome back to Parsha theBarber. Unfortunately, we are not at theBarber because Ilya couldn't be here last second. But so I don't have my hype man. But we gotta do what we gotta do. And I just remembered I have to make sure that this is actually running. So we once had a case where I thought I was live. Oh, we're live. Baruch Hashem, it shows that we're live. Okay. Well, I once had a time when I thought I was running and I was not. But anyway, I want to just say welcome to all the new subscribers. Because and this has nothing to do with me. My wife went on a spree of just getting people to subscribe. Since last week, there's over 100 new subscribers. So welcome everybody, and we hope you like this. I want to bring the star of the.
I just want to say hi, everybody. Unfortunately, I can't be here. I have a birthday party. Today's my birthday, and I'm heading out to a birthday party. But I'm rooting for
my husband. It's a Geisha birthday party. So.
It's my Geisha birthday, but it's a Yiddish birthday party with a farbrengen of sorts. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you find it, entertaining?
And informative.
Informative and entertaining.
There you go. Yes, exactly. Okay. Thank you. See you. Okay, guys, so this week's Parsha is Parshas Beshalach, and before we get into the juicy meat and potatoes, I just want to go over the Parsha quickly. So let's do this. I'm going to go quickly. Okay. Number one, I want to say that, of course, all the Torah that we're doing here is dedicated to Am Yisrael, to the soldiers in the front lines, to all the Eretz Yisrael, to the soldiers who gave up their lives, Al Kiddush Hashem, and to the captive, the Chatufim, they should come back home safely. Let's talk about the Parsha. Okay, general overview of the Parsha. Parai pursues the Yidden into the desert. And there's tons and tons of drugs, we're going to get into it, but basically, Nachshon jumps into the water, the Yam Suf splits, the Yidden go inside, and all the MITZVAH and the Egyptians get drowned. Moshe and the Yidden sing a special song, thanking Hashem for the miracle, and the Yidden complain that there's no food and water. So Hashem sends man and slav. This was the good time that there were slav, right? There was a second time where the slav actually made them sick. But and also they had Be'er Miriam water that came from the rock that actually followed them throughout the desert. And Amalek attacks the Yidden, and they are defeated. That's pretty much the Parsha in a nutshell. Now, let's get into, first of all, I want to say that there is a video from last year. It's titled, Who Was Moses Montefiore? That is Beshalach from last year, and I recommend you watch that on your own time to get some information you will not get this week because we already covered that, and this is round 2. So, let's get on with it. I just want to start with, from the moment that the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they had many enemies. Number one, they had the enemies in Mitzrayim, right? The people who didn't really want to let them go. And they couldn't go Derech Eretz Plishtim because the Plishtim were their enemies. It says in the Midrashim that actually a bunch of nations came together when the Mitzrayim were running after the Yidden. And they also helped in the pursuit, but Hashem spared them so they should see the punishment of the Mitzrayim. So they had a lot of enemies, and one of their big enemies was Bilam. Bilam, it says actually from the moment that the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, until Matan Torah. He wanted to prevent this. He was the Yidden's nemesis. And so he went, it's actually, I never heard of this before. He went to the Mount Harei Choshech, it says, the mountains of darkness, where Azza and Uziel were, these are the two fallen angels already from the time of the Mabul, from before the Mabul. And for 50 days he tried all types of prosecution against the Yidden. We know later on he tried to get to find the right moment when Hashem is angry at the Yidden. He's always trying to make problems for the Jews. And he tried to do all types of sorcery to try to prevent them from going to Matan Torah and to go back to Mitzrayim. And obviously none of that worked. So yeah, Bilam was at it already. He wanted to kill Moshe. Also, he was the number one enemy. Now it says that the Yidden left Chamushim. So Rashi explains Chamushim means that they were armed. But there's a bunch of different explanations, hints of what this could mean, aside from them being armed, that they left armed in order to be able to defend themselves, even though Hashem was protecting them, but you have to do things according to nature. And one of them is that the Chamushim is actually written without the Vav. It's Chamushim. Normally you would put a Vav after the Mem to make it Chamushim, but here it's spelled also like Chamishim, and the reason why in other words, they left Mitzrayim. Why? Because in 50 days they were going to receive the Torah. In other words, that the whole reason they were taken out is in order for them to accept the Torah at Har Sinai. And another thing is also, it says that the Erev Rav, for every 5 Jews, there was one of Erev Rav. Erev Rav were the people who were actually Egyptians who decided to join the Jewish people because they wanted the perks, they wanted the fun times. They didn't do it, unfortunately, they didn't do it for the right reasons. And we see that they caused a lot of trouble for the Jewish people later on. Now it says, like in the MAIMONIDES, it says that the Yidden, when they got to the water, they saw that there was a big storm. The water was raging. And they wanted to go through the desert, and Hashem brought wild animals to block their way. And then on the 3rd day from when they left Mitzrayim, Hashem said, go back a little bit towards Mitzrayim, to a place called Pi HaChirais, which previously was called Pisim, which was actually Pisim, where Yidden actually, that's one of the cities they built. And this was, and right in front of the Avodah Zarah of the Mitzrayim, which was called Baal Tzefain. Now, why did he do this? Why did Hashem do this? So this was in order to make the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, think that they're most powerful, that they had a God that was still powerful. He was the most powerful one, and that God couldn't beat him. So they should, be emboldened to go after the Jewish people. And we see this is really what happened. This is what made Moshe Rabbeinu. This is what made Paro feel like he can, even though he just went through the harrowing Makas B'Cheres and through all the things that the nation did, but and the entire Egyptian nation went through this, but this gave them the security that they can go after the Jews. And it's actually it describes what was there. It says there were 2 pillars in that area that they were shaped like a man and a woman. It wasn't human made. It wasn't made by man. It wasn't man made. It wasn't carved out. It was just like that. One looked like a man, one looked like a woman, and then across it, opposite it, they set up this Baal Tzefain, and on it there was an engraving of a dog. I think it's like a furious dog. And it was actually, this was they went through that exit of Mitzrayim. What the Mitzrayim did is they had, and this is how they prevented any slaves from leaving, with sorcery, anybody who went by any of the gates, they had different animals etched out on every single exit of the land. And when a person would try to leave, when a servant particularly would try to leave, that animal would start making a lot of noises, and the rest of the animals, would make noise, and then the animals in Mitzrayim would hear it, and they would make noise, and so everyone knew that someone was trying to escape. And that's actually why it says that the dog, when it says when the dogs didn't bark, what it's saying is that over here, the dogs, even though there was this dog at the exit that was supposed to have raised the alarm, that didn't happen. Now, of course, Pare let them out. The point was that was one of that's one of the things that is explained about the dogs not barking. Now, so and there's a story brought by the MAIMONIDES that explains a story that kind of is similar to this. The idea of Hashem making idol worshippers think that they have security, or that there's that they have a chance at something. There's a story that brings down of a Jew who went to Kedar. It's a certain town. It's a very interesting story. I just want to say, like a very I don't even know what the word is. It's a strange story, because it says that he went to this place called Kedar, and in this town, all the people there worshipped the fire of Gehenna. Now, I don't know where you find the fire of Gehenna, but this is what is told. And how would they worship it? They would go and burn a fire from the morning till evening, and then from evening till morning. You could burn all the wood that you wanted with this fire. There would be no ash. It would be totally gone. And so they attributed power to fire because it was the first fire that was created, and they saw that there was no ash. So they thought, wow, this is real. This is something that's worthy to serve, because people are going to get punished by it. And they had this whole myth that before you die, when you get old, if you throw yourself into the fires of Gehenna, then you won't be punished in the fires of Gehenna. You'll have a good afterlife after that. But if you don't, so then when you die, you're going to be punished. It's a very strange belief that they had. Anyway, so this Jew goes to this town, and even though they were wicked people and they served idols, they had some good attributes to them. Number one, they didn't like taking other people's money, so you leave your money with them, and also they told the truth. They weren't liars. They didn't like to cheat people and to deceive them. Now, this Jew finds out that where he wants to go, there are people who are always waiting to ambush and rob people, and he had his whole life savings with him, so he kept it by the person he was staying in that town, in order that it shouldn't get stolen. And he comes back some while later, and he asks where this man is, and they say, well, he was very old, and so he threw himself into these fires of Gehenna. And this guy's like, how am I going to get my money now? Nobody knew where his money was. And so they said, don't worry, he'll come back in 3 days. Because part of their myth was that 3 days afterwards, the person would come home, write his will, and then he would go back. He would go away. So this guy waited. He was like, this is so weird, so strange. What's going on over here? And a guy comes back after 3 days, and he writes his will, goes about taking care of his whole family, and the Jew asks him, where's my money? And so he opens a certain chest or drawer, whatever it is, he takes it out, gives it to him. And this Jew is so curious, he's like, is it really true that you threw yourselves into the fires of Gehenna? And again, I don't understand what that means. Where are they finding the fires of Gehenna? I don't really have a good explanation for this story, but I found it very interesting and very strange. And so he says yes. So he said, I want to see you go back and throw yourself in. So he says, if you come with me, I'm going to throw you in. So the Jew says, listen, I'm young, but I'm not scared. I'm going to go. I want to see what's going on over here. This doesn't make any sense. And the guy keeps on telling him, don't come, don't follow me. And he says, I don't care. I'll follow you even for days. I'm not scared of you. I think something's up. There's a catch over here. This is not what it seems like. And the guy keeps on following him. And when this person sees him, when this person sees that he's adamant and he's not letting up, he asks him, this old man asks the Jew, are you a Jew? So this Jew says, I'm the Jew, the son of a Jew, and Yehudi ben Yehudi. So he says, I want you to know I'm not really the old man. I'm actually a shade. I'm a demon, and I'm in charge of Gehenna. And these people, because they serve Avodah Zarah and they turned away from Hashem and they serve nonsense, so therefore I dress up, I appear as the deceased, and I come back and write the will and take care of the whole family, do whatever it is, and then I leave, and then I go back. And these people, they don't have a great afterlife because they didn't serve Hashem and they were idol worshippers. And but you, because you're a Jew and you go in the right path and you serve Hashem so as long as you are keeping what you're supposed to keep and you're keeping Torah mitzvahs, I can't harm you. And so he said, go in peace. And this Jew was he understood what was going on. And it says in the story he was happy. And Ashreinu Matev Chalkeinu, that we have the truth. Yeah, it's a wild story. Now, why did Hashem B'davka spare? Why did Hashem set it up that the Jews were sitting outside, were camped? They went to the sea. Hashem tells them to go back to Pihachiros, where they have this big, massive idol of the Mitzrayim. Why this whole setup? And we said because it's in order to make them believe, make the Egyptians believe that they had a chance here to get the Jewish people. But why B'davka over here by Baal Tzafon? Why did he spare this idol? So the reason is, it says because the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, by most of the plagues, they understood that they had done something wrong. They understood, so even though it was very painful, but when you understand why you're being punished, there's a certain understanding. And for all the things, whenever they got punished up until the Makkah of darkness, they understood, okay, this is because I treated the Jew badly. We treated the Jewish people badly, and this is what happened. But by darkness, they didn't understand. They thought that it wasn't fair. And what happened by darkness? That's when the Jewish people were able to see all their valuables, and that's what ended up making it that they gave away all their riches to the Jews. And this Baal Tzafon was the god, quote unquote, of riches, of money, of possessions. And so they thought, we're gonna go, and because the Jews are stopped by Pihachiros, and they thought that it was because of their idol that they're confused and it's having them stop there. So now we're gonna go, and this idol is gonna who's in charge of the money is gonna help us get revenge of the Jews, and we'll get our money back. So again, a very interesting opinion over here. Very interesting. I think it's a medrash. The MAIMONIDES brings down the sources in the bottom, but I didn't always look at the bottom. So now here's a question. The thing about the idols is that this idol and also the other idols and by the gates was that you couldn't, and this is what made Paro also think that he should go after the Jewish people even after everything that he already experienced, was because they had this thing where their idols didn't let anybody leave. And so he thought, it's our idol that's stopping the Jews from going. That's why they're just stuck. He got reports. There were people who were following the Jews. There were Egyptians following the Jews. He got reports, and he saw that they went to the sea. They're by the. There are wild animals stopping them from the other side, and they have to come back here. So this is the power of our gods, quote unquote. So the question comes: so how did we know that the Bnei Ephraim, some people from Shevet Ephraim, they left early. They made a mistake in the calculation of when Golus was supposed to end, and they tried to force it. They tried to leave early, and they ended up being able to leave. And then eventually, by the Plishtim, the land of the Plishtim, they were killed. And there's a whole medrash. There's a whole in Navi it talks about it. It's actually Haftarah, where eventually Hashem brought the bones back to life, and they went to Eretz Yisrael. It's a fascinating story. Maybe we'll mention it at some point on the channel. But so how did they get out, if that's the case? So there's two answers. Number one, that Bnei Ephraim was the son of Yosef, who was royalty. And we know that Levi wasn't enslaved, but here it says that actually Ephraim, since they were royalty in Yosef, the Mitzvahim didn't have the audacity to enslave them. And so they weren't slaves, and the gates, only the magic power, the sorcery that they implemented at the entrances or the exits of Mitzrayim only worked by by slaves, but they weren't slaves, so therefore they were able to leave. And a second answer is that leaving on the south, because the south there was just desert, and once somebody left, they wouldn't be able to track them. So that's where they had the magic. But in the north, since that was the way to the Plishtim, to the Philistines, so therefore there were always people going, and they would be easily caught. But Ephraim, who were very, very strong, they actually overpowered all the guards over there, and everyone who would have stopped them. And some of them maybe had gotten killed, but they ended up coming out on top, at least temporarily. Okay. Now, some more about Parai and what made him think that now it's a good idea to go get the Jewish people, right? He was scared for his life. He lets them go out. All of a sudden, boom, he's like, I'm gonna mess with God again. What's going on? So when he saw that Hashem wasn't leading them, right? There's animals that are, again, right? There's nowhere they can go, and they're wandering. He said, this whole time I thought that the reason why I got all these plagues is because I didn't listen to him. I didn't let them go out, and because he loved the Jewish people. And not because maybe I insulted him, because already he says, oh, I never heard of God, I never heard of him. Like he belittled Hashem. But he says, now that I see that the Jewish people, that he doesn't really care about them, and this is Hashem wanted to trip him up. And so he says, see, Hashem doesn't care. Look, there's wild animals that don't allow them to go, and they're just hanging out, stuck by the idol. So this means that it was just because I didn't listen to him and because I belittled him, and that's why he brought all these things upon me. And really, he doesn't care about the Jews. Now that I let them go and I listened to him and I submitted to him, now I can do whatever I want with the Jewish people. Just another thing about the Baal Tzafon, which is very, again, another strange thing. I like to bring these strange things from the Eitzer Place of Torah, stuff that you probably never heard. It says that people would go to this Baal Tzafon, to this Avodah Zarah, to like Mitzvahim would go if they were blind or handicapped to become healed. And there was one Jew who I guess he had a son who was he couldn't use his legs. He was handicapped both his legs. And so he wanted to go and heal his son. Obviously, a Jew is not allowed to do this, but unfortunately, there were Jews who fell to idol worship in Mitzrayim. And so he wanted to go and he wanted to see, and he took his son amongst these people, and he sees that at midnight, all of a sudden, it says a shade. You want to loosely translate it into English as a demon, whatever it is, but and he's going around with oil and putting it on these people, and they're being healed. But when he came to his son, he didn't put on him, he skipped him. And so he asks, so why are you skipping my son? So he says, because loy ka'ela chelek Yaakov ki yotzer hakol hu. This is not the portion of Yaakov, because Hashem is the creator of all. In other words, Hashem is the one who creates, and he's also the one who takes away. And Hashem is the one who can heal, and so therefore a Jew can't do this. And he actually said that, really, this is not for their good, even though they're being healed. And really, I'm not even healing them. It's just, Hashem gives sickness for a certain time, and this is the time that they were supposed to be healed. So again, it's a little bit, it sounds like a stretch, that detail, but the point is that Yidden prefer, this is a big thing in Chassidus, where Yidden prefer to work harder, perhaps, and to be connected to Hashem than to just to take, just to receive, maybe something easier, or even perhaps what would look like better off, but be disconnected from Hashem. That's the essence of Yid. We don't ever want to be disconnected from Hashem. Now, this is what this is. The thumbnail says, right, why the Rambam, why Maimonides had to flee to Mitzrayim. So when I was a kid, I read this really incredible book about the Rambam. It's meant for a younger crowd. Not that adults can't read it. It's very, very interesting. But and I read this part of the story of why the Rambam had to go. I mean, it's incredible. It says from when he was a child. Actually, it says when he was a child, he actually wasn't a very smart boy, or he wasn't able to learn very well. And there's a whole story of how that ended up happening, that his heart and mind opened, he was able to learn. And it goes through the Rambam's life was incredibly. He had an incredible life. He had a full life, and it was also very painful. He went through a lot of hardships in his life. I will, Be'ezrat Hashem, post a link if this book is still in print, to this book afterwards, so you can either buy it for yourself or for your kid. I think it's a phenomenal book. And so Rabbi Ashturei HaParchi, he has his sefer called Kafter Vaferech, and apparently his name was Ashturei Yitzchak ben Rav Moshe. He lived in Mitzrayim for part of his life, and he also he writes that he spoke to the grandson of the Rambam, and his name was Reb Shmuel, the grandson of the Rambam, and he told this Rabbeinu Ashturei HaParchi that the Rambam, when he was in Mitzrayim, whenever he would write, he would sign off by saying, HaKoisev ha'oiver b'chol yom shlosh alavin. The one who's writing, who's going against 3 prohibitions of the Torah every single day. And what he's referring to is the fact that it says that the Rambam, in the Torah, it says 3 different times about not going to, or not being in Mitzrayim. Once is in our Parsha, where it says that Moshe tells the Yidden that they're never going to see the Mitzrayim again. The Mitzrayim that they see today, they'll never see them again, meaning they'll never be there. Another time it says that the king should never bring the Jews back to Mitzrayim. He shouldn't have too many horses. And then there's a third one. But basically it says 3 times about not going to Mitzrayim. And Rabbi Yitzchak, this Rabbeinu Ashturei HaParchi, it seems like that might have been his pen name, says that it's possible that he didn't actually go against his Averis. Why? Because number one, he was the doctor of the king in Egypt, in Cairo. And the king wouldn't have let him go. And number 2, the Torah says, there are opinions that say that you're not supposed to go back to Mitzrayim, but derech hazeh, and this path. In other words, the path that they took through Midbar Yamsuf. But if you go through a different path, then it's okay. And the Rambam actually had gone to Mitzrayim in a different way than the Yidden had gone in the Midbar. And the truth is that many Yidden, many great Yidden, many great rabbis, many of the greatest of the Jewish people in different eras lived in Mitzrayim. Even in the Gemara it says Masechah Sukkah that people who didn't see Diuphilus, I don't know how you pronounce this, but basically it was a very illustrious city, illustrious area in Alexandria, in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. He said that if you didn't see that place, then you didn't see the honor of the Jewish people. In other words, there's a very illustrious community there. There's actually a list, it brings down in this Sefer, Eitzer Place Atera, in the name of, I forgot who brings it down, but it brings down a bunch of different rabbis and many, many great people who lived in Mitzrayim. And there's a lot of different reasons why perhaps it was okay, based on some of the reasons we gave and other reasons. This is just a fact. And the Rambam, so let's go to the story about how the Rambam had to leave. So in this Sefer, and I don't know if it's a mistake, I have to go and look it up on my own time. He says that this happened in Cordoba, but I believe that the Rambam left Cordoba when he was 13, when he was very young. And this was because really his whole life, the Rambam, there was a group, the Almohads or the Almohads, I don't know how you pronounce them, these were the version of ISIS today. These were people who would go around killing anybody who they thought was an infidel, and they would do mass conversions, forced conversions, and the Rambam had to run away from them more than once in his life, him and his family. But I'm guessing that this story actually happened in Morocco, but I didn't have time to look up exactly where it happened. But the point is that he was going out in Sukkot, and he walked out of shul holding his lulav and esrog. And this actually says, this is like K'minig Chesidim Anshe Maisa. This is a minig that's brought down. And the Rambam actually, you'll see, he says that it's actually minig Yerushalayim, to walk outside out of shul afterwards with lulav in your hand. And the king over there sees him, and he made fun of him. He said, "What is this? What you're going? Why are you today? You the Rambam. You're a great. He was already a doctor then. He was a respected man. You're walking around like an imbecile, like a crazy person holding a plant. What are you doing?" So the Rambam turns around and says, "No. I'm not acting like a crazy person. Crazy people throw rocks. And the Rambam was alluding to something. The king didn't realize this until later, but the Rambam was alluding to the fact that the Muslims, they have a minhag, they have a custom to throw rocks. I believe it's at Mecca, but I don't know Islam. I don't know exactly, but I believe they have a certain time of year where they go. So it's a pilgrimage, and they throw rocks, and they have this whole thing where they take, they take off all the regular clothes and they put clothes that have seams on them. It's very interesting. The Sefer that brings us down, that I believe it's the Tzrar Hamar. I don't know, am I correct over here? I don't want to quote it from the wrong source, but he says that it's actually written down that this is from before, when they were pagan and they were idol worshippers, and it carried over. Even though now there's monotheism, it actually is rooted in Avodah Zarah. There's one Avodah Zarah where you throw rocks, and that's called Markulis, and there's one that's Pa'ir, and that's how they prostrate themselves. Originally, whatever. There's a whole. Rabbi Gordon talks about how at some point Pa'ir was where people would just empty their bowels in front of the idol, which is an absurd way to serve a god. But the reason for that was because originally when people would serve this idol worship, they would be in a very deep meditative state, and because of that, their body would relax, and so much so that their bowels would be emptied, but they just got stuck with the empty bowels and not with the meditative state. But anyways, this, it seems, carried over into Islam, and but it obviously took different forms. And this pilgrimage includes in it this, whatever you could say, lost in translation, whatever it is, this idea, these traditions that are rooted in paganism originally, which is fascinating. I never knew this. Um, but anyway, so the Rambam says throwing rocks is what crazy people do. But this is what God told me to do. I'm following what Hashem told me to do. And this is the minhag of Moshe, Teras Moshe Rabbeinu, and this is also minhag Yerushalayim, the minhag of Yerushalayim, right? So that's what you see. And this king just he laughed it off. He did, whatever. He kind of accepted what the Rambam had said. But then, wherever the Rambam was, he had enemies because he was, so loved. Once you're so loved, you also have haters. And so these haters, they went to the king and said, "What do you think about the Rambam says?" So he said, he answered me correctly. Crazy people will throw rocks. He didn't understand yet what he was alluding to. And he's doing what his God commanded him. It's a noble thing, right? Meaning, he understood the Rambam's logic. Maybe he didn't agree with him, but he said, okay, I get what he's saying. But they said, no, you don't understand. He was making fun of our religion. And the king got very angry. And the king wanted to kill him. And so, the Rambam Baruch Hashem was able to escape, but he had to leave. And he ended up going to Mitzrayim. And the Rambam's dream was always to end up in Eretz Yisrael. And there are a lot of stories. We don't know exactly what happened. There are stories about saying that I don't know if it was a donkey or a camel that ended up carrying the Rambam there after he'd already passed away, or I don't remember exactly what it is. There's different opinions about what actually happened, and I think that it's accepted that he's buried in Tveria. But don't take my word for it. Go look it up. But he ended up being in Mitzrayim, and ended up being the Sultan's personal physician, and So this is what made the Rambam, that's what caused him to have to leave where he was and go to Mitzrayim. I want to just say something for Tu B'Shvat, because Tu B'Shvat is coming up. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a sefer really quickly, but I don't know where it is. That's a problem. Okay. I'm going to say it as I know it. It's going to be Tu B'Shvat It's going to be Tu B'Shvat when? Why do I not have the date here? Today was Yud Beis, I believe. So in 3 days. I just want to say something very short for Tu B'Shvat, in honor of Tu B'Shvat. Very, very short story. There was a certain Rebbe, I'm forgetting who it was. I believe it was the Kotzker, but I don't want to say that for sure. And there was a certain rich man who was by him. And it was Tu B'Shvat. And he honored this guy with the eggs of the fish, which is, I'm guessing it's caviar. And it was, it's a delicacy. And he said it's called roigen, I guess either in the language of the country or in Yiddish. I just read the story, it says roigen. And es in Yiddish means to eat. And he told him, es roigen, eat the roigen, but together tell him like es roigen. And nobody understood why he was doing this. He kept on saying es roigen, es roigen. And it ended up being that this rich man ended up going away. He traveled far away, and where the Kotzker Rebbe was, in the entire country, entire region, there was war, and the people weren't war. You can't really travel as much, and so they weren't able to access an esrog. So, but this rich man happened to be somewhere else where we were able to get a really muhudik esrog, and he was able to come back and bring it with him. And he wasn't affected by the roads on the war. And then everybody realized what the Kotzker Rebbe was, again, what this Rebbe was saying. I don't know if it was a Kotzker. What this Rebbe was saying, what he was saying, Esregen, he was basically setting up the stage for this rich man to be able to access the esrog, so they should be able to have a kosher esrog. And in those days, it was very, very common that not everybody had their own esrog. There was one esrog in the town, and they gave it to the Rebbe. There's a story of the Berditchever, I think more than one story with the Berditchever, with an esrig that they were looking for, and so that was very common to only have one esrig, especially in in hard times. And actually, it actually says that you're supposed to daven on Tu B'Shvat that you're going to have a kosher esrig on Sukkot, because Tu B'Shvat is when is the Rosh Hashanah Leilon, is Rosh Hashanah for the trees, and therefore that's when the judgment for all the fruits is going to be, and we know what's going to be throughout the year from Tu B'Shvat to Tu B'Shvat. So therefore, that's when you're supposed to daven to have a kosher esrig, and this is what this Rebbe did. Anyway, guys, please, first of all, welcome to everybody who's new here. Thank you so much. It's incredible what my wife did. She just got I believe by now it's close to 100 in less than 48 hours subscribers. So welcome all for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this informative and entertaining. And please comment. Tell me what you liked, tell me what you didn't like. And for all the OGs, people who've been here from the beginning, thank you. Again, this is dedicated to Am Yisrael, to the soldiers on the front lines, to the neshamas that are in a better place now, and to the hostages that should come back home very, very soon. Please smash the like button, subscribe, tell your friends about this, and if you'd like to support the channel and help me continue this, there's a Patreon link in the bottom. You can look at that. Patreon. Yeah, I hope, this is just the skimming the top. There's so much. Every time I read so many more things, and I'm like, I want to say this, but there's just, it's a lot of ground to cover. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here. So go learn on your own. There's an endless sea of Torah to be discovered. And it's Monday night, but this should carry you until Shabbos. So have a beautiful week and have a good Shabbos. Love you guys. Until next time.